when we ask for community or we ask for village, what are you asking for?
Totally.
We think what we see on Instagram or there's this beautiful picture of what that looks like. And in the realness of it, are you really going to want what that older person has for you? Because
100%,
both of you
100%.
know that I have not been necessarily really easy sometimes when I'm like, no, let me tell you how this goes. Because of the things that I've seen in my life over and over and over again, or the energetics or the laws of whatever that apply to that. I'm like, no, let me tell you how that goes down. Fix it. You know? Yeah. And to me, that's that holding the feet and going, you want what you want? Let me tell you what needs to happen here. And so when we think about the concept of village, you know, there's the wisdom piece there. There's also the piece that it's not going to look like what you think it's going to look like. And then there's the element of, do you want to conform or be transformed?
Welcome to the Village Sessions.
Bringing wisdom home.
Let's introduce ourselves. I'm Kori.
I'm Michelle.
I'm Molly.
And maybe we'll just tell a little bit about ourselves. Do you want to start, Michelle?
Michelle Chatham. Wow.
Why are you here?
Why am I here?
How did you come to be?
How did I come to be? Almost 60 years ago. Yeah.
Not like a day over 30.
Yeah.
So we're fine.
She's aging in reverse right
Born
now.
in Mississippi. Yeah, I've been in healthcare for 40 years as a nurse and other things, and have a history in actually detoxification. So was trained by an early functional medicine specialist before functional medicine was a thing. And I've got 5 children. I've had 8 pregnancies. So my children are 23 to 31, grown. And yeah, I spent the last 15 years working cradiofacial growth and development and early optimal breastfeeding, sleeping, breathing, the tongue tie world, and moved to Maui 5 years ago now. Yeah, I didn't know if it was going to be a long time or a good time, and packed my bags and gave away my possessions and came without knowing anyone. And it's been the best decision I've ever made. So, what about you, Molly?
Well, I love your story. I see a lot of myself in your story, specifically how you came to Maui. But my name is Molly. I'm a chiropractor by trade, birth keeper. I've done traditional midwifery training, and I have a son, and we did a whole traditional, like untraditional wild pregnancy last year, and then had an unassisted birth, and we had the village that came to be. They came in. My husband waved the white flag in the moments that we needed, and we had our people there when my son came through. And yeah, that's been like really one of the most transformational moments of my life, and has built some solidarity in our relationships and yeah, the community and the village that we have here on Maui. I moved here 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago, and I was fresh out of chiropractic school. So I was like, you know, in my full maidenhood and single and didn't know what I wanted to do, had never not been in school, and came here, and I prayed for like 6 months to a year to find out who I was and what I liked to do and what I enjoyed. And I got that, and then opened a practice, and yeah, the rest is kind of history with our history and my husband and my baby. So yeah, grateful to be here. What about you, Kori?
I'm Kori, and yeah, I have a similar kind of Maui story in that I have been here for a little over 4 years. I am a wife to a guy named Kyle, and I'm a mom to Koa and Story, and I'm a business owner and a stay-at-home mom, and just have always loved the entrepreneurial world, and through it, just get to use all of my gifts and passion for holistic health, but really it's expanded into just like alignment. What does it look like to live a life aligned to who you are? And yeah, I've just really enjoyed this process. This is the second time that I have had the absolute privilege of doing a podcast, and I'm so grateful to be with these two very special ladies in my life. We can talk a little bit about just how we've gotten connected over the years. I actually got connected to them the exact same time, my first week on Maui. But first, maybe let's talk about the title, like the name, the Village Sessions, the concept of bringing wisdom home, and yeah, just how this came about. Who wants to kick that off?
You should tell them about how Village Sessions is inspired by artistry.
Yes, big time. Yeah, I'm very inspired by artistry, and if you guys listen to music or have been listening to music for a while, you understand that there's like this concept when an artist has been making maybe multiple albums, and then at one moment they either host like a little mini concert or they record an album out of their own living room, and they call it the living room sessions, and it's really intimate and personal. It's get to know you, get to know like your essence and who you are, your values, your belief systems. And so this name like dropped in for all of us for the creation of this podcast and what we're kind of formatting here, which is an intimate, we're literally in Michele's living room. This is her home, and where we've spent just like really special time with her together, and with our families and with our kids running around in this exact room. And so the idea of inviting you guys in and sharing an experience with us and getting to know us, getting to know our framework, and you guys actually, being able to receive the wisdom, especially that Michale shares, and bringing that home to you is kind of the heart and soul of this podcast. There's a lot of soulfulness that we've really like brought into the vision of this. That's been such an enjoyable process.
Yeah, I think the archetypes present feel very relevant too for the village part of Village Sessions, and being able to like sit at Michele's feet in a sense and really like glean her wisdom. I remember one moment when I was in my pregnancy and I was going through some, ancestral healing and excavating of my birth with my mom had with me, and then her birth with my grandma, and then my grandma's birth. And I was going down my line and speaking this out to Michale, and she was like, "Oh, well, I had beautiful birth experiences. Like, you can have those. Like, take these as yours." And so I feel like that is kind of that picture of that moment for me is what this is. It's like, here it is. Here's the wisdom. Here are my experiences. Like, let me like shepherd you, guide you. Like, we want to share this, and we want it to be infused into everything you do, relationally, emotionally, energetically, how you're going to make an impact on the world. So I'm really grateful to be sitting beside you guys.
This chicken is coming in the house right
That's
now.
fine. This is Hawaii.
Hey, baby.
So this is one of Michelle's many chickens.
Yep.
She feeds them.
This
Yes.
is how it rolls.
But they don't lay eggs for you.
Yes.
Confused by that.
They don't.
No,
So you just
they just take.
Just extract.
and chicken feed is sometimes a stressor for you too. we'll talk about that.
We'll get into it next season.
Okay, great. No, I appreciate that because, that's the village model of the transmission of wisdom, right? Is that intimate, open the heart, sharing of something, and then somebody that's, we envision older and wiser is going to offer you something that's specific to you, that it's not just some general, here, let me Google that, But it's because somebody knows you and knows your desires and knows your blueprint in the world and why you're here, and also understands time, you know, that you're not just here to repeat the pattern, but you're here to also create. How do you want to do that? What's your way, right? And so the really beautiful thing about wisdom, that's the patina of wisdom, is the fact that it's not easily gained. It's through the difficulties that it comes. And usually the people who possess the most of it, most of that quality, you know, the difficulties that they've had, they don't always perceive as challenges. So when they tell their story and like all the things that they've experienced in their lifetime, people are like, what? You know, but you're like, oh yeah,
I was just living.
I had 4 near-death experiences and da-da-da-da-da, and I've lost everything multiple times and blah, 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 blah. And everybody's like, whoa, 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 you know. And at the same time, it's from that well that truth can be exposed, right? Because there's no facade. There's no mask. There's no anything there except all the cracks where the light comes out, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, the village piece too, with you're talking about difficulties and experiences, and also creating relationships. That's also not always easily earned either, right? Humans we're all funny, you know,
Right.
we all have our things, and so it's like this well worth it kind of experience, and something that I'm really grateful to have created and get to and like grateful to be able to speak from experience with. And because we all came here to Maui, like bless Maui for like welcoming us, and also came here, you know, seeking that. I remember telling you, I think I told you whenever it was within the first year that I knew you, and I was praying for like a mother figure, a mother mentor figure, you know, because my recent mentor prior to that was a male, and it was beautiful, but it was something that I was yearning for. And so I remember us having multiple conversations about that. And shortly after, Michelle came through my chiropractic doors.
Well, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the other aspect too. So if you think about like the concept of the village, that the multi-generational aspect of the village is actually appropriate. It's a time-tested structure, is that there are pillars and wise people and people of many different ages, right? There are children. There are young parents. There are older parents with grown children. There are older people that have had these wisdom-bearing experiences, and then there are the pillars of the community, right? So with that model intact, it's like, well, when we ask for community or we ask for village, what are you asking for?
Totally.
We think what we see on Instagram, or there's this beautiful picture of what that looks like. And in the realness of it, are you really going to want what that older person has for you? Because
100%,
both of you
100%.
know that I have
Yes.
not been necessarily really easy sometimes when I'm like, no, let me tell you how this goes. Because of the things that I've seen in my life over and over and over again, or the energetics or the laws of whatever that apply to that. I'm like, no, let me tell you how that goes down. Fix it. You know? Yeah. And to me, that's that holding the feet and going, you want what you want? Let me tell you what needs to happen here. And so when we think about the concept of village, you know, there's the wisdom piece there. There's also the piece that it's not going to look like what you think it's going to look like. And then there's the element of, do you want to conform or be transformed?
100%.
Because conforming in village looks like what you see online. Transforming through village is not always the prettiest thing.
Totally.
That was the example of the first time you reached out to me online about moving to Maui and would I, whatever. And I just rolled my eyes,
Totally.
Virgo eye roll right here,
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly. Because, and this really speaks to the social media aspect. It's like, what can you do for me? Almost. Yeah.
Totally.
Like, what can you do for
100%.
me?
Every
Can
day,
you
all the
do-
time.
Can you do CFT? Can you like work with my child? Like what, or even potentially, like people know like what your gifts and what you have to offer. And so that was speaking very clearly, even through getting connected with you for the first time. So I probably felt that, like I probably felt, what you held within yourself. The real question is, and it goes back to what you were just saying, what might that require of me?
Exactly.
And that's been a process for years now. And I love the symbolism of having sold all of our possessions, come to Maui, clean slate. Yeah, this like metaphor of being kind of like beginner mindset. I know you talk about that a lot, beginner's mindset. And so I kind of want to go back to what you were saying earlier about this picture of the village, because maybe you've seen, and we've actually chatted about this in our circles and our spaces online, in our containers, this element of like, oh, like you guys made an Instagram post about this on Midline Revolution. I remember like
With the photo from the river.
Yes, it was like you see that we have community, and potentially there's an assumption that we just always had this. Whereas we created this, and it was this form over time of quite literally like what it required in our human development to be able to like, come together in that way. So yeah, Molly and I had how long has it been that we've been like receiving wisdom from Michale?
4
years.
4 years for sure on my end.
Well, Molly and I knew of you in Dallas because you were interning at the chiropractor in the office where I used to receive care. And I remember hearing your name, and I would kind of see like this shadow of this dark-haired young lady. And then it was, oh, Molly's moving to Maui, and then all the conversation that went around that. And I was like, oh, you go, girl. You go get yours. I was all about it. And little did I know that in 6 months later, 9 months later, I would be giving away like the entire contents of my home and packing up a few boxes and a couple of suitcases and coming over myself, not knowing if it was a good time or a long time, and just open, like, okay, I'm here. And then went back one more time to teach a laser course at University of Texas, and then came back just on a voice of like, change your ticket now and go back, and got back 2 days before everything shut down. And then we went through that. And then coming toward the end of shutdown, you and two of our favorite IBCLCs were going to do a talk, and the frenectomy provider on Maui. And I was like, oh,
Okay,
people.
I love this story.
Oh, it's so good.
It literally, all of us are like, some of the IBCLCs have been in practice for quite a while, but I'm like so green and so fresh in the field. I'm hosting a lip and tongue tie talk, and then
And
one
so
of the
I was
IBCLCs was like, "Do you know who's coming?" I was like, "No idea?" Question mark. She's like, "Look at all the events you spoke at." I was like, "These don't mean anything to
Molly's
me."
like, so?
Yeah, I was so
What?
fresh,
So what?
man.
And so
Right.
she's having this event, and I'm like, oh, snacks. Oh, people. Seriously.
go.
I'm like, let's go.
It was at the time. It was
a big deal.
It was against
The regulations,
law,
right.
the regulations
Yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah.
to host more than 5 people at a time or
Right.
something like that. So
Yeah.
we were going out on a limb.
Absolutely. And I honestly, I joke about the snacks, but I'm like, oh, I want to go meet these people. I want to know who they are, like genuinely. And, not showing up as whatever, just like, oh, cool, there's people, let's go, and just showed up to serve, just to serve and say, how can I help you guys? And then, went through the whole, listened to their whole talk, and they kept like looking at me for confirmation. I'm like, no, really, it's okay. It's like, you do you, boo. It's all right. Just be your best self here. And they brought it, and I think Molly, you finally like wrapped it up and were like, so
I would love to hear from another person in the room. Tell us more.
And so, I just kind of went like, hey, you guys want to work with some babies? I was like, then we were in the floor having the best time and flowing. And, we have this picture of Molly and I working on a little girl together. And that was kind of this big like culmination moment for Molly, and then I ended up working with them. But that was the first time Molly and I had ever been in the same space. I hadn't even met you before then. Totally. And so that was such a village. That was a village establishing moment. And, I showed up in service. I didn't want anything from them. I just, of course people are like, oh, don't you want referrals? I'm like, no.
No hands-on practice right now.
Be happy to teach you guys. Do not, really don't want any of that.
We tried to wrangle you in so many times.
You tried so hard.
So there's this one case, and she was like, don't even.
She's like, don't even.
Girl,
I know what
like,
you're doing.
Girl, stop. I was like, not even having it. I was like, stop right there. But that's another like, village moment where you're like, how can I show up and serve? How can I show up and give from the abundance that I've been given? How can I offer something of value, even if it's just space holding and support or
bring
presence.
a snack.
Yeah, bring a snack or eat a snack or whatever, and so that's another kind of like villagey, Genesis kind of moment, in that, so we've got the elements of the multi-generational presences, right, in village. We've got the fact that your elders are probably not going to be the most polished, most, unaffected people, right? And a lot goes with that. When you come together, what's the impetus and the driver behind your coming together? Are you giving? Are you taking? Is there service? Is there sharing? Is there what's the impetus there, right?
And is there a commonality?
Is there commonality?
Is there resonance?
There has to be giving and receiving, and the energy exchange. You know how I talk about that all the time, the energy exchange, right? And then there are the highlights and lowlights. So we were talking about that earlier today, where a lot, the social media is the highlight reel, right? But we don't post usually the lowlight reel, right? And so, and even the lowlights can include like private, secret things. Like your birth was one of those secret things. It became known later, but in the moment, it was to be kept.
It was a seed.
We kept the seed. Yeah, we kept the seed for that and allowed it to die and germinate and go through its process, right? Before there was this opening to whatever. So different components of village genesis and cultivation are prevalent. And then also the confirmation transformation. If you're there to conform, then that just pretty much confirms you're not going to transform. You've got to be willing to do your, in the adult development world, they call it the horizontal and vertical process, right? And we are so focused in the West on our horizontal process. Like I had somebody message me on Instagram today. She wanted to know my area of expertise and basically what training I had. And I literally threw my head back and laughed. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I haven't been asked this question in so long, and I'm like, I just tapped in, I'm like, it's on my website, and my curriculum vitae is, I don't know, last time I updated a freaking CV, is on the website if you're interested in that, if that's what you require. And, at the same time, I'm not really working with one-to-one clients that aren't involved in any of our containers, right? But at the same time, she's asking an honest question, and good for her asking, right? And it was just, it made me laugh, right? Because I'm like, oh, I feel too old for that almost sometimes.
It's like getting ID'd at the bar or something.
Yes,
or
it's
whatever.
like, oh, I'm out for drinks and I got carded. At the front time, you're like, what? And at the time, you're like, it's like, oh, I don't know which one it is. Or, you kind of go through the whole thing, right?
If you've had a drink, it's like, oh, yeah,
okay, cool.
thanks.
Yeah, it's like, oh. But anyway, those are just, in my estimation, some elements of village formation. And I think really also it's no place for entitlement. There's really no room for entitlement in the village. If you're going to show up and receive, then when it's time, you're going to give. If you require being given to because of a natural phase and stage you're going through life, like birth, postpartum, whatever, then receive graciously, speak your needs cleanly, be willing to transform in that way vertically. Because in the West, we're so focused on credentials and horizontal credibility, right? That there are so many people that are so credible, but they lack that vertical growth that takes you to that becomes the pillar, right? That becomes the place where wisdom rests, right? It's not that you're above everybody else, but that's what you do to ascend, into that. And it's not that you're better. It's actually that you're stripping away. There's such a stripping away involved in that. So I see it in both of those ways.
Yeah, I see that in your work and what you're doing in the sense that you're asking your mentees or your clients to be connected in relationship to all Indigenous models have the connection here, connection to God, connection to the land. And so you're not going to go just horizontal. You're connected on this otherworldly plane, and that allows the unfolding, that allows the unearthing, and the phoenix rising moments and the transformation that is required for the development of humanity.
Yeah. So maybe like practically what this might look like in today's age, and especially driven by this highlight reel of social media, is we all sense that there's like this deep desire for village. That's like a huge concept of what we're creating here is an example of like what that could look like. And maybe what it looks like today is, like meeting like-minded people, but everyone is the same age. That could look like that horizontal kind of example of life stages, life seasons, and wonderful to meet people that have the same values, belief systems, frameworks that you do and have and hold. And what Michelle's talking about here is like where can we grow vertically from there, especially when it comes to the calibration piece. We love this word because Michale is like what we would call a master calibrator. And she, even just looking at like what she was saying earlier about the additions of elders, now I'd say like more than any other time we have like movement, right? So like families move away, maybe from parents and grandparents. This is what we did. This was our family experience as well. And we had an experience, like growing community, same age. And then that desire, same as Molly, like truly came through. It's biological. This desire, like you guys will feel that when I say it, this desire for an older, wiser woman who is able to, the pillar part, the pillar imagery there. It is so real on a cellular level. You can feel it. You can feel the desire for it while also holding space for your love for your own like biological family. But if you're not living near them right now, or you don't have that relationship with them, what could that look like to create these biological built-in desires of our hearts and how we develop and grow organically over time?
I think a big piece there is having people around you to accurately reflect for you what's happening. That's what it's been for my husband and I, is like, we want to be surrounded by people that are maybe not in the same type of work and in the same type of mindset, but also accurately reflecting to us like what's happening. We need a reflection. We can't grow and change and evolve and transform without someone showing you who you are. You have to be in relationship to know who you are. And so I think that's a huge piece.
And the responsibility on the wise person, wise woman, is to be a clean mirror. You don't want your reflection out of a distorted mirror.
Totally.
I mean, we're
Land
not
that
shopping.
plane.
Yep.
We all know that one store, right, where you're looking in the mirror and you're like, "What?" You know,
What'd they do to that mirror?
seriously? You know, boy, that's a big distortion, right?
But that requires like adult development in an adult body.
Yeah.
And that's not a lot of what we see.
When I hear people issue the cry, we've all heard it, right? Yes,
Multiple times.
multiple times about the cry for village and the cry for community and the cry for this and that. I'm like, some people don't even really like know what that means and what it requires and the elements that go into it, which is what I was trying to like lay out, you know, in kind of numerical or bullet pointed form during this time, is like, these are your elements. You know, can you go there? Or are you just looking for a social club?
That
Come on.
even developmentally, maybe it's this like, maybe you're in a state of survival too, and you just want to feel a sense of belonging, like a human survival mechanism where it's like belonging, where are my people? And yet, like, if you're actually growing this way, it is a like, who am I becoming and what might this require of me? And also that requires you to examine like, who is it that I want to be like involved in, and what do they represent back to me? Looking at that mirror, what do they represent to you? What does that mean about you in this season of your life?
I think another piece too, my husband and I were talking about wisdom systems and just that whole concept. And indigenously, there were masters of a certain trade within villages or within communities. Specifically in Hawaii, there would be these vertical communities where from the mountain to the ocean, everyone kind of had their role per se within the ecosystem of the land itself. And I was thinking about that when you were talking about what elements do you need to create. I'm thinking, oh yeah, these masters of their trade would look at a lineup of 6-year-olds and be like, you're the one that knows how to fish. You're the one that knows how to, your shot is amazing. This is what you were born and designed to do. And there's a lot of other elements that go along with that. But I feel like it was just like yes, there were masters, and like, we come to you because of your master, your intuition, your calibration, all of these things gifts that you have and the mastery that you've cultivated. And we come to you and say, okay, yes, show me more. Like, show me again, over and over. And I'm willing to transform.
Kori, you made a really good point, kind of this coagulation of, you know, what it means to be in community when it's peer. And what occurred to me was that the conditioning for peer orientation comes from the school system. It's also very prevalent in organized religion. So if you think about like how different churches organize their groups, because as churches got bigger, then they actually followed the same school model. So you don't have elders with younger people, right? And so, and we have lots of white paper now, lots in academia that talks about the deleterious effects of segregating populations, right, according to like age, and the longevity that comes from being together, right? But the whole idea of being segregated in the peer concept is diluting both the reality of the growth and the experiences that are required to actually ascend and go into this, what we hope is a mature adult, right? Because as we know, age doesn't necessarily mean maturity, right? And these developmental hiccups and glitches and delays actually they're physiologic. They show up in our physiology. They also show up in our cognition. They show up in our psyche. They show up in all the aspects of our humanity, right? So the ability to pull all that together is also, very important, a very important concept of village. So when I hear people issue the call and the cry for village, I'm like, do you really know what you're asking for? Are you ready for the transformation that you need to make to be able to have that? And a lot of people are just like, I don't even know what that means.
It's just the question of like, where is it? Where is it? Where is the village? But it's you moving towards like who you are becoming, and then that organically unfolding over time. And something you said about the school system, I thought was a fantastic like drop in for what was the book we were talking about? It's Hold On to Your Kids. Who wrote that?
Gaber Mate.
Oh, it's okay. Gaber Mate or do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I think, well, specifically in maybe my my family, my hometown family, what I recognize the most is that a lot of the kids are growing up being parented or learning wisdom via social media. And so a lot of the wisdom transmission is now extremely horizontal, and it's pure wisdom that's being translated and via TikTok, or learning how to tie your shoes on Insta, or whatever the reels are, you know, all of these like how to DIY things. And it's an interesting era to be in, where there is not that vertical transmission and there's not that foundational pillar.
Well, those are just basic skills.
Totally.
Right? Those are just basic life skills.
Yeah. Where you're watching virtually versus actually having the experience with.
Right.
And then seeing that book example, I mean, that book like spread like wildfire, I feel like, in like moms my age, older, not realizing that there actually also is a direct translation and mirror to the adult relationships too. 100%. And like the horizontal peer, just like the school system, where you're like looking for somebody that looks like you, is your exact same age, dresses like you, does life like you. That is such a programming, I'm realizing. And so, yeah, like looking at that mirror and going, oh, wow, okay. Where can I create that vertical, like up leveling in my life is a great place to start.
Because our kids are going to follow what we do.
I had an interesting conversation with someone in one of my containers, and I said in the group, I said, probably most of you wished that you would have had a place to go with an older, wiser woman where you could show up without judgment, receiving judgment, show up and take your mask off, or maybe even just ask the question, who am I? And have that reflected back to you with love, you know, maybe an energetic smack or two, you know.
Tutu likes to get down with
I'll
that.
get down with
gets
it. I will
down.
straight get down with some smacking around. And every one of them was like, absolutely yes. You know, we wish we had that older, wiser woman in the woods to trek off to and sit in front of the fire and say, tell me something, you know, or them to say, what is it that's bothering you? And it's not therapy. It's somebody that knows you, sees you, loves you, and also knows who you are and why you're here. You know, not that they're going to trump your interpretation of that, but they're going to support you fully in the developing and the development of the expression of that in all the ways, right? And then not judge your squeaky voice when you try, or not, you know, whatever, or kick you in the pants when you need it, you know, because that, you know, come on.
We've had a few of those.
Are you
mainly
willing
on
to be
voice memo?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you willing to be kicked in the pants? That's all you got to ask yourself at the end of the day.
Man,
If you want to get there, you might, you know. I know, you know, and when I've had, you know, I think about the different elders who have had a role in my life. And I can remember I was probably like 8 or 9 years old. And there was this man, he was married to a lady that used to work with my dad back in the day. And he would take a group of us, 7, 8, 9-year-olds, and he would pick us all up in his pickup truck and take us to visit a shut-in or take us to visit, you know, a rest home. And we would sing. He was like, you're going to sing for these people. And we were like, yes, sir, we're going to sing. We sang. We told stories. We listened to stories. We listened to them tell stories. We prayed with them. We brought them things that they might need, you know, and that was like a foundational like framework and piece of my life. I did that for years with this gentleman. And, you know, you don't hear like about things like that anymore. It was like he required us, you know, to be a certain way, to have our best manners on, to ask politely, to all the things, right? All of those skills.
This reminds me of some of the stories that you've told us about your sons and raising them and how you used to interact and do homeschool and what you guys used to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That I guess I just kind of carried that on, you know? So, yeah, how we, you know, hold on to your kids. Yeah. But, and, you know, create that multi-generational ability to, you know, cross and like I mean, that's being lost in so many cultures now, but I know like even here in Hawaii, I mean, the honoring of the tutu, the calling out to the aunties, you know, if you need some type of mediation, you get a respected uncle, you know, that kind of thing. And, you know, that's basically gone, you know, on the mainland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the displacement of humans essentially. And you lose so much of that tether to the relationship and the village model.
Yeah.
And Molly and I know from childhood experience, both having grown up in like tight knit with our family and extended family. Down the street was one set of grandparents for me. Down the street was the other set of grandparents for me. Super involved in my life, always holding this frame of like my identity, everyone's framework and belief systems were just cohesively intertwined with my parents and grandparents. And I will forever cherish that childhood. And then Molly, don't want to speak for you, but just like the like-mindedness and then having that experience, of course, we organically like kept that desire, you know, of what we grew up with. Yeah. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I think about like for you guys raising children, like Molly, you're away from your parents, Kori, you're away from your parents, you and Kyle's parents, and you know, anytime I can open up my home, how many taco nights have we had here? How many Christmases and you know, times where we've
Beach times
and you know, yard times and just done all those things and you know, they know they're going to Tutu's house, you know, and that while it's not the same, it's a reference point for them in their development and their growth.
Yeah, and it was a download for me maybe 2 years ago that's been a recurrent theme for me and Kyle to chat through is it has felt so important for us to raise our children with this vertical model and other people who are able to see where my children are growing, see them for who they are. And I see that even in the way that you buy like birthday gifts. Like you purchase gifts through like this is like the highest expression of this is your essence. This is your essence, and it's in what you see in even a small child, and then you gift that to them in the form of a gift, and even that I feel like just really expresses the way that you see and how important that is to have people in your life who see someone's whole identity.
Yeah, it's a gift, you know, for people to have each other in this way. And I think Molly, you were about to say something about your birth a minute ago and the kind of the village, how that happened, and because you didn't plan it that way.
No, I think this was kind of the transmutation of the village, the word village for us in our relationship together. Because we won't go into the whole story here, but we had intended to have another elder present at our birth, and she no longer she doesn't work traditionally in the birth world anymore, but she has been to many, many births, and she is somebody that holds immense wisdom in that realm. And the day my water broke, she texted us and said, "Hey, I'm like not feeling great. I don't think that I could be down to come if anything happens." And I was like, "Okay, okay,
Here we go.
Here we go. And then I was playing with the concepts of like freedom, free birthing. What does that mean? You know? And so breaking that down, it's like, I was never intending to do this on my own. I was never intending to be solo ever. I was intending to be sovereign, and I was intending to be held and supported. And I was open to what that looked like. And, yeah, we were, what were we, 22 hours in or something like that? 22 hours in. And Sam's like, yo, we need some fresh energy. And so anyways.
Which was, hey, do you guys want to come by and bring Molly some coffee? And I'm like,
coffee.
We're like, coffee.
Coffee.
But the reason is because we had played with the concept of early in labor, having some of my favorite people, which is the village, come through
I can get there.
every couple hours and bring bone broth or bring a coffee and just keep it fresh.
You seeded it.
And we seeded that, and I played with that idea. And at the end of the day, I was like, no, babe, I want to have like a little more privacy, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe I won't next time. But so we already seeded it. We already knew, and that was where the coffee came from. You want to have some coffee?
I was like,
we were like, what coffee shop should we go to?
Okay, but also the day before, after my water broke, we went to Whole Foods because you had to pick up just a few things right before, like getting ready or whatever. We didn't know how long it was going to take. And in the parking lot, who comes by? It's Kyle and the kids. And I'm sweating and moving through contractions. And Kyle's like, you doing okay? And I was like, I'm great. And then he's like, I heard that your water broke, and I was like, yep. And I was like, I'm going through it. He's like, okay, I'll just we'll leave you be. And then I was like, all right. So
y'all know, if you guys have been in labor before, you know the rosy cheek, face flush, like deer in the headlights, kind of like nobody talked to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Kyle came home and he was like, hey, he was like, I did see Molly in the parking lot. And
Sam left her in the truck. I think the first thing he said, he goes, Sam left you in the truck? And I was like, yeah, I just wanted him to run it.
That's cool. So funny. He didn't even mention that. He was just like, just want to let you know, like, yeah, just like he was almost like bringing that awareness into my field
So
of like,
good.
of even just the energetic support, which then like, I was like, yeah, both of us just had a totally clear schedule for the next 2 days, basically.
Graciously cleared it off.
It was already clear. What was I doing?
I had to clear mine, but it's okay. It's cool.
And that's part of the receiving.
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
like,
It was, yeah.
can.
Great.
I had a group meeting that afternoon and a couple other things, and I got my VA, and I'm like, yo, stuff's up, and she's like, cool, I got you. And,
She's like, what's going on?
I know. It's like, tell me,
That was the cool part too, because I was gone for most of the day that day. Kyle ran into a couple people, and even to see him keeping the seed of labor of just like, oh, where's Kori at? Oh,
don't
What
know.
did you say?
I don't know. She's been gone all day.
neither here nor there. Like,
No, she's fine. It's fine. She's just.
I haven't
she's
seen her.
doing
I
stuff,
haven't seen her.
I don't know.
It's fine. It's fine.
So anyways, Sam's calling in us being like, don't care how long it is, clearing our schedule, we're there, you let us know. And then we check back in and we're like, because we know her, and this is the important thing here, is we had such a knowing of Molly up until that point.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, here's what I need you to ask Molly. These specific words, these specific questions.
Read it from the phone.
If she answered
And he did.
this word, and he did.
Yeah.
If she answers this word, we're going to come. If she answers this word, we're going to hang back.
Yeah.
And she answered this word, and we got in the car.
I came by and picked you. I will by. I zip by, pick up Kori. I'm like, oh, okay. So what
Playing gangster rap, probably.
Yeah, probably. That's my jam.
We hopped in.
So I'm in. We're zooming through.
And
Hallelujah.
on the way, aren't you guys? You were like talking about like what is needed. Like I'm checking in. I'm tuning in because our energetic fields are already in resonance.
Yeah.
So the need was already known before you guys came.
But we were
The need
already
was
synced up. Like we're in service. We're in service. We're however we can assist you. And I know that moment where I walked in, you're like laying on the end of the bed or something like. And I walked in and I sat down beside you and I just started stroking your hair. And Kori, she's lurker. She's like got her
Pops
camera around the
with my video
corner,
camera.
like
Capture the moment.
yeah, doing that. And I'm just stroking your hair and I'm like, so how's it going? What you need? Are we gonna do this? What are we doing?
Yep.
And
Full
you're
on
crying.
tears.
You're crying. You're crying. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna let her get. You have take your moment. What
And
do we
you-
need to do?
You don't know what I didn't know what I needed until you touched me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, I just needed your touch. I just needed like a woman's touch. I needed to be held, and in a different way. Sam's amazing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just needed you to stroke my hair.
Well, and I had already
breakthrough.
offered you my birth experiences, right? So here I am
He
saying,
seeded it.
I'm like, we got this.
Yep.
You know, take mine. It's
So
all
special.
good.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole concept. We talk about this often, but you become who you spend your
100%.
time with, and you have this like what she was sharing earlier about like, here's what she knew about birth, here's what she's downloaded based on like her family, and then there's this gateway of like, okay, now I can bring this in as like, it's so much easier to move towards something when it's an example in your field that you believe, that you've witnessed. And so that's the whole concept of this podcast too, is being able to witness Village, and then like having this on the forefront of your mind of like, okay, this is Village, this is what this could look like, and moving towards that. So the concept of Village, we literally weren't even using this word yet, I don't think, until after your birth and processing it, because the way we showed up at your birth, and we'll talk about this in another episode when we, share a little bit more about your story. But the way that Michelle and I showed up for Molly was the exact same way that we would have showed up for Molly in any other average day. It like, birth was just another day. It was just like a part of life.
100%.
We knew what she needed. We knew what was supportive for her. We had a relationship with her. We had built this foundation with her, in which case the inner knowing, that was the very first home birth I've ever witnessed outside of my own. The very first, maybe,
other than my 8.
other than your own,
other than my
multiple.
8. Yeah.
And we just kept being like my download was just like the fact that we could just come together and support the process because we have this foundation of what is and how to support each other in this free giving and receiving. It was just so abundant. Like it was like, we just were so happy to be there. And so afterwards we were like, oh my gosh, she called in the Village in the same way that we already knew how to support her in everyday life. And that was monumental for me to witness, change my life, monumental for all of us. And that was a very sacred experience that pretty much took shape and form and informed the next season of our relationship together.
Totally. It's also informed so much of what we're speaking about now of like outsourcing versus insourcing. Who are the people that love you? Who are the people that know you? How can they come in and support whatever you're birthing, whatever you're creating, whatever you're wanting to figure out, transform through? It's like, who are the people that know you and love you?
Yeah.
And how have you served them? And what is your relationship? What is your resonance? How can they show up for you?
Yeah, there's a word in the adult development language around ego development and, vertical, they call them levels, but vertical development is called center of gravity. And what I'm learning about that is what you're talking about is you brought in people with similar centers of gravity.
Yep.
And it became this magnetic field that just provided for you. And, I think that that's a principle too with Village. We get so visual about what it looks like and what we think it should be that it's not that you're necessarily looking for people that are like you, and maybe you guys have similar centers of gravity. In other words, there's a developmental aspect and different rites of passage that you've experienced where you've either created phenomenal experiences or you've reframed the experience that you had and experienced like triumph and healing from that, and you form this field where other people can step in and they can transform into and develop a similar center of gravity so that you're more powerful together than you would be individually. Just a thought.
The Village sessions.
The Village sessions.
Yeah.
Even, and we'll talk about Bowspring in another episode, but even for Molly to have the conscious thought of like, I know how I hold my frame. I know what would create this channel of opening for a child to come through. And she brought in the people who also hold
100%.
their bodies in the same way and would be cueing her to remind her of how she's already holding her body.
Yeah.
All that we did was just provide these prompts of here's what you already are. Here's who you already are,
Yeah.
And held the complete trust that even though you weren't directing, that you were still pulsing with your own intention and desire. And we were going to respect that in whatever way that we could tap into that. Just your cues, your energy,
the environment, the thing I set up,
your
all the places.
ecology,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
fact that we know your standards and your belief systems, and maybe where you need us to like come behind you and just be like, okay, come on, you're almost there, you can do it, you know.
How you take your adrenal cocktails.
I don't know, be your hype girl,
I
you
was-
know.
Chugging those adrenal cocktails, they were so good. The bone broth afterwards, man.
Yeah.
That was like soul nourishment.
Soul food.
Yeah.
Soul food.
So I hope this this kind of reflection, you know, gives the people who are listening just the almost like the bones. It's like giving them the frame. The frame. It may not be assembled yet, but here are the beams. You know,
start with the
and you
beams.
can take those beams and you can put them together in a square house or an A-frame house or a, you know, whatever shape house is for you, and let it be a full reflection of the center of gravity of the relationships between each other, the land, and God, and let it flow.
And these beams being almost like if you take, you know, those Venn diagrams, is that what they're called, where it's 3 circles and
Yeah.
there's something in the center? So speaking to what you were speaking on in the beginning of this episode is artistry. So we each have like our own individual essences, what we've created together. We've each created things together, and they all share this same centralized framework and beam structure and pillars. And so being able to like bring all of that together in an art form and unify and kind of create a space to invite you guys into having an experience with that, having an experience with those beams is the purpose here. So we're just excited to have you here.
Yeah, it's an honor.
Absolutely. Thank you.